Most people think that June is too late to sow vegetables. What if I told you that June is one of the most important months of the year? This one month can set you up for an autumn bounty, a winter pantry, and even next spring's harvests. And in today's video, I shall tell you what we shall be sowing in the month of June. Last June, we were behind with our sowings. Life got so busy. I remember, Mrs. W, that we actually went on a family holiday for my mother's 80th, didn't we?
We did, yes. Lovely week.
Yeah, it was. It was gorgeous. But I did just sow a few trays of things such as beetroot, kale, purple sprouting broccoli, and believe me, it changed everything. June isn't late. It's a turning point. It's a bridge between spring's rush and summer's peak. And what you sow now will carry you all the way through until next May. If you think about it, most of the vegetables we grow are annuals. They grow for 6 months and we take their harvest, certainly the ones that we plant in the first half of the year. And as they become ready and come to maturity and we harvest them in June and July, the things that we're going to sow now, they will then replace those and give us lots of food for the months to come. Any time in June, you could be sowing your beetroot, multi-sown. We tend to sow the likes of Bolt Hardy and Burpees Golden, and I really like the Burpees Golden. And of course, you need to keep continuously sowing your salad onions. Ishikura is the one for us. And we've really been enjoying the Lilia just lately. It's a lovely red salad onion. Never grown it before, but we're really pleased with it, aren't we, Mrs. W?
We are, yes, lovely.
And so every time you plant some more out into your plots, immediately go and sow the next, and then that will follow on. There's also lettuce. Lettuce you can continue sowing. We tend to sow lettuce probably 3 to 4 times a year, and then we pick the outer leaves. We don't very often eat a lettuce when it's hearted up. But some of them, they do heart up, and then we can eat them just like that. And if you are going to be eating them when they're hearting up, you need to be continually sowing them. They don't take very long to come to their harvest, about 12 weeks, and you've got a hearted lettuce. So therefore, every 6 weeks or so, sow a few more, so that you can keep those harvests going. Now, during the month of June, brassicas are a big thing to sow. They play a big part in being able to feed ourselves here in the UK, because we have a cooler climate. The brassicas like that, and so we can get lots of food that will be ready for us to eat during the autumn, winter periods, but also well into next year. We shall be sowing our kale this month. We sow 2 types, which is the curly leafed kale. We really like that, and it produces in abundance. And just for a little bit of a difference between it, we also sow the Tosca de Nero, which is not curly, it's more flat leafed, but nevertheless, really, really great. And kale are one of those super vegetables. You sow them now, and for us, probably around about late August, we should be taking our first pickings. And then it will provide us with lots of valuable food through the autumn months. And it takes a break over winter. And then it comes back again with a vengeance as we turn into the new year. Believe me, kale is one of those vegetables that you really do need to grow. Even if you can't grow anything else because you're short on space, because its harvest period goes on for so long.
It just keeps giving, doesn't it? It really does. It's
yes, Mrs. W, it does. It just keeps giving. You're so right. And it's classed as one of the superfoods.
Oh, yes.
Cabbages. Now, they're a real staple of our winter diet here in the UK. And this month I shall be sowing, or begin sowing, some of the cabbages that I will want to eat as we get to winter and indeed into the new year. Now, Frank, who lives over there in the USA, he has a much, really, probably more of a shorter growing climate than we do, because he's cold for so very long. And I know he's sowing, or has sown actually, because he told me a few videos back that he's already sown his tundra cabbages. Well, during this month, that's when we sow ours, because ours can continue growing through the autumn period and into winter. Our winters are not that harsh here in our Zone 9A garden. So I'll be really interested to see how yours perform, Frank, and as usual, do keep us updated on how it's all going. I note from the last video that you're going to try leeks again this year, and my fingers are crossed for you that they will come really good. The other two that we're going to sow is a variety called Wintessa, and those ones give harvest round about December and through January. And the other is Virtus. Virtus will give its harvest through March, April and May. And if I can successfully mix that with those cauliflowers that I grew this year, then we'll have a lovely variety of greens to be eating through the winter period and the early spring period. June, you can still be sowing calabrese. I shall be, and they will give us harvest during September and October. Usually, towards the end of June, that's when people say you stop sowing calabrese. But actually, I know a lot of you asked me, how did you get harvest of calabrese during the month of November? If you're a regular watcher of our channel, you'll know we had some lovely big heads to harvest during late November. Well, do make sure that you are subscribed to the channel, because then that way you'll find out exactly the date that we sow those, in order that you can still be eating calabrese broccoli at the end of November. Next, the aforementioned cauliflower, and I shall be sowing the Aylesmere this month. The Oreo, remember Oreo? That was such an amazing harvest and such great cauliflowers, and we've been enjoying both of those varieties all through April and May. They gave us wonderful food to eat.
I've had some lovely cauliflower cheese.
You have, haven't you?
That's one of my favourite dishes.
Now, June is also the time that I sow my purple sprouting broccoli. Every year we sow our purple sprouting broccoli, and we normally have around about 6 to 8 plants. And I've kind of been looking at that over the last couple of years, and I've come to a decision that I need to sow less. Now, these plants give such an abundance of harvest, and it pains me to have to waste anything. And when you have so many plants and there's only 2 of you living there, inevitably they go over, don't they? It produces so profusely that we simply can't keep up with its harvest.
No.
And we only have so much space where we can harvest things, whether it be by the frozen method or just keeping it in a cold store. And although when it does go to flower, it's amazing for the wildlife, I like to think that I can grow enough plants that's going to feed myself and Mrs. W. So this year I shall actually be sowing the same 3 varieties that I sowed last year. But there's going to be 1 plant of Rudolph. There is going to be 1 plant of the early purple sprouting broccoli, and then 2 plants of claret. Claret really does produce an abundance, doesn't it?
It does.
More than the others. The others aren't F1s.
No, Rudolph is probably the less productive.
Yeah.
But it's early. We get that lovely early harvest from that, don't we? So
we get that in December, don't we?
Yeah, wouldn't want to be without that.
Yeah, through January and February, and then the early purple sprouting takes over, and then claret after that. But you can see by the way, the things that I'm saying that we're going to be sowing, that, during that period, it's not just, you know, you wouldn't want to be just eating purple sprouting broccoli. I mean, I love it, but you can get bored of things if you have too much of it. And if it's mixed in with the cabbages and the cauliflower and the kale, you can see where I'm going with this. You can have something different to eat as the days and weeks go by at that time of the year. I sowed a swede. I don't know if it was in the last video or the video before, but you saw me sowing that. It's not too late to sow it in June, but it does want to be sown in the first half of June to give it ample time so that when the weather starts to cool down and we get to late August and into September, it can then start bulking up and making its lovely big root. When it comes to carrots for the autumn and winter period, June is when I like to sow them. Some people sow them in July and some people sow them in August. What I like to do is to begin sowing the carrots that I want for autumn round about the summer solstice, so mid-June. Towards the beginning of July, I'll do another couple of rows. They will mature just a little bit later, towards December. And then what I have been doing just lately, and has worked really well for us, is just to sow another couple of rows round about the end of July, certainly no later than the first week in August. And those carrots, they'll take a little bit longer to mature, but we'll have those in January and February. You can see here that we have some lovely Florence fennel that are growing, and I really can't wait to enjoy their taste. They're not far away from harvesting now.
And the bulbing, yes.
And they're bulbing.
We
Quite
have had
right, Mrs.
such
W.
failures with getting them to bulb over the years, haven't we? Oh, so nice to see them bulb.
But it just goes to show you, if you stick at it, eventually you'll find the right timing, the right time for you to plant it in your garden, for you to get harvests. But now I've savoured the taste of success, I want more. And so with the Florence fennel, the second half of June, so after the summer solstice and into early July, is a good time to sow your next sowing, and then they'll be ready sometime in the autumn for you to be able to enjoy. And once again, that word that I love to use, you get a continuity of harvest. June is the month also that I look to sow chard. Now, we already have some chard that we can enjoy now, but this chard, if you sow it now, it becomes a really super crop. Because what happens is you sow it in June, you'll actually begin picking it in a few weeks' time, but it overwinters, and you can keep picking bits and pieces from it to mix in with your lettuce that you're picking, and well, it can take the place of lettuce, can't it, Mrs. W,
Yes,
over the winter
lettuce
period.
and spinach, any
Yeah.
recipe that calls for spinach, you can replace with
Yeah.
the chard leaves and things like that. Yeah.
And of course, we will be growing our spinach later in the year. And we will have those winter density and Arctic King, and it just, you can mix the flavours up, and yeah, it's such a valuable crop, I can't tell you. It won't rise to flower and do something until, well, round about May the following year. So it means you can continue harvesting it all the way through the year. And then a stalwart of ours, kohlrabi. June is a good month to sow kohlrabi. It doesn't take very long to come to harvest, and has an absolutely wonderful taste. If you've never tried it before, do grow it. Unlike cabbage, you don't grow it for its leaves. You actually grow it for the bulb that it forms, or the root that it forms. And it has a really unique taste. And if you get on with it, you'll never be without it again. Now, don't forget to keep on top of your radishes. You can continually keep sowing them in the same way that you do the salad onions, and they'll keep producing for you a wonderful, crunchy, spicy vegetable from the brassica family. And it is last chance saloon now. We always do a last chance saloon in what you can sow each month. So for the warmth loving crops, this is your last chance to actually sow cucumbers. If you haven't sown any yet, do make sure you sow them right at the beginning of June, whether it be indoor or outdoor. That's it. After that, there simply won't be enough time for those to start growing and give you their harvest. Now, you can see down here that we have our dwarf French beans, and they're doing really nicely. They've come on nicely since we've actually transplanted them here in this polytunnel. But if you start to get gaps in your garden that you'd like to fill and get a lovely harvest, dwarf French beans are a key crop. They won't get killed until the first frost comes along. If you don't have the facility to build arches or wigwams or any other structure, just slot them into your plots. Even if you're growing in raised beds, as you get a bit of a space, tuck one of those in there. They'll be more than happy.
They don't need any support or anything, do they? And
no, they don't.
They
no.
only grow about sort of 18 inches high at the most, really. So they're
at the most
nice, compact little plants.
But their harvest is absolutely prolific. Now, I often say that garden is all about timing. If you get your timings right, then it becomes so much easier. To get the timings right, it means just keep sowing. And as you get gaps appear and things give up their final harvest, you can put them into that position and replace them. But of course, life often gets in the way. We don't always get our timings right. Not even I do. And sometimes it might take that extra 2 or 3 weeks before you get the harvest that you're expecting 3 weeks before that. So don't be afraid to pot your plants on. Just keep them going. The worst thing you can do is to think, oh, I'll sow some now, because they're going to be 4 to 6 weeks away until you can actually get them into the ground. You're better off to have a plant that's ready to go on the very day that you take the plant that's out in your plot and when it gives its final harvest. And just pot them on. Well, I very rarely pot things on, but this is a good time of the year to do that. If they're starting to get a bit big, give them a slightly bigger pot and let them grow on. And then as that position becomes free, in it goes. So there it is, a full guide on what I'm sowing in June, from salad trays to next spring's harvests. This month is a powerhouse. So if you plan it right, you're not late, you're right on time. Let us know what you're sowing in this month. There are many others that can be sown in June, things such as endive. If you've enjoyed this video, then do give us a thumbs up and don't forget to hit that subscribe button. Now, if you want to see what we managed to eat and sustain ourselves with food over the winter and early spring period, then watch this video next. And don't forget, healthy soil means healthy plants, and there is no spade required.